Hello, everyone. This is Karol Kaczmarek, the co founder of Net Zero Compare. Today, we are joined by Lee Stewart, CEO of ESG Strategy, best selling author of How to Build Sustainability into Your Business Strategy, and a practitioner with over 2 decades of experience in corporate strategy, ESG integration, reporting, and sustainability leadership. Lee works directly with executives and boards across Australia and internationally, helping organizations move from high level commitments to practical, measurable actions that stand up to scrutiny. For our audience at Net Zero Compare, his perspective is especially relevant. Many companies still struggle with aligning sustainability targets with core business strategy, improving data quality, navigating regulations, and balancing compliance expectations with real world operational constraints. Lee has spent years addressing exactly these issues from strategy development to reporting execution. Lee, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Carol. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, you've worked in corporate strategy and sustainability for more than 20 years. What is the biggest gap you consistently see between a company's stated sustainability ambition and its actual operating reality?
Yeah, unfortunately, we still see the same mistakes repeated time and time again. A lot of companies, especially, get very excited, love to produce a lovely sustainability report, ambitions and targets, but normally it falls on the shoulders of two or three people in the organization. They do two things. They either leave because there's so much piled on them, or they burn out. And I've done both of those in my career working in these roles. They fail to understand that it needs to be segregated across the business. Executives and business lines need to be responsible for sections of the sustainability strategy and held accountable and report to the board directly, not through the sustainability person. The sustainability person needs to be the coordinator, not the doer of everything. So that's what I see time and time again, especially larger companies making that mistake.
Thank you so much for that helpful context. Maybe because many organizations, as we know, still get stuck at the point where ambition and execution don't match exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
So, your book focuses on building sustainability directly into business strategy. So, in practice, if you could tell us what elements must be in place before sustainability can function as a true driver of value rather than a separate ESG exercise.
Yeah, so I look at three key things, and I've really simplified the 20 years of pain and mistakes I've made. And I've crystallized it to three key things that I look for, that I try and implement when I'm working with my clients as well. And it's called a very simple triple C framework, where you look at confidence. So first of all, I want to understand, are the people making decisions actually know what carbon is, or the context of modern slavery on their organization, global climate change, plastic waste, for instance, supply chain issues. How do they know the context of these big global macro issues, and what do they mean to my business and the relevance to my business? I've found if I try jump to, say, setting a climate target without a board knowing what is the carbon, I've made that mistake so many times. And you realize that, oh, I need to actually spend time so the board, these decision makers, are actually confident what these all mean. The next thing I look for is the next C is called commitment. What do you actually stand for? And the key element I see there is a good materiality assessment. You've actually gone beyond your organization, asked your customers, key stakeholders, what does sustainability mean to you and the relevance of our business? How do we impact the external environment beyond ourselves? What's the positive impact we could have? And is there any opportunity to collaborate with our clients? That's really key, because I see altruism and sustainability, especially in a corporate context, last only so far. But when you bring your customer with you, where revenue comes into the business, that's where it really sticks and stays and adds value. And then the final one, which I alluded to earlier in your first question, is the consistency. And that's where things are let down. So people go out, set big targets. They don't have a consistent model or governance model to make sure they go the distance. They make incremental improvements and report on that and hold people accountable. So those are three things I look for when you're actually looking at outside in on these businesses, to make sure they have that context and they're actually taking it seriously.
This is actually very important what you've said, because many companies try to integrate sustainability without first putting the structural pieces in place, unfortunately. ESG strategy works closely with boards and executive teams. What are the most practical governance changes companies can implement to improve oversight without creating unnecessary bureaucracy?
Yeah, this is really interesting, really good question. And I really get nervous when people say, oh, we need to change everything. We need to implement a whole new system for ESG. It's going to cost this much. We need all this people. We need a new ERP system to measure all this stuff. Don't you just scare people, and it just makes the thing seem so big. What I look for, and as part of that materiality assessment when I go and interview people, is most companies are already doing this in some shape or form, probably not doing it as well as they could, probably not reporting on all that, and probably need to invest more in certain areas that are relevant to their business. So go and see the factory floor or walk around your business, ask people what's going on. Generally, if you're in a large company, I've been on factory floors or on farms even, or right out in the, go see for yourself. These people have the solutions and have the ideas. They know the business. Some of them have been working for decades and seeing these problems and want to fix it and haven't had the resources or the way to implement a business case, for instance. So your role is to go and find these pockets of excellence, look to elevate them, and use them. Don't go and recreate the whole wheel. So most companies already have a health and safety committee. Maybe leverage that for adding on environment to start with. Don't try and create a whole new committee, a whole new audit trail. Everyone reports on finance. So the finance teams are stepping up and now reporting on climate risk and disclosures. They need a hand too about understanding ambiguity of long-term thinking. So there are pockets of people that can do things already for you. Don't reinvent the wheel, and start by doing some small quick wins and build on that.
That's great. You've just mentioned materiality assessment. So, when
Yeah.
companies start their first materiality assessment or update an old one, what are the biggest mistakes you see, particularly around stakeholder engagement and issue prioritization?
Yeah, especially around stakeholder engagement, they go too narrow. They always try and include customers. In fact, it's probably not a materiality assessment if you haven't included a customer or suppliers for that matter. If you're a really large company, include local governments or other areas as well. You get some really, really good insights into doing that. And especially when I've had some sort of negativity to the subject of ESG or sustainability, I've brought the salesperson along with me to talk to some of our largest customers when I've been in-house as head of sustainability. And they see firsthand, oh, this actually means something to my customer. There's an opportunity here for our business to actually increase the revenue from that customer or collaborate with that client. This is where sustainability is really missing the mark in many companies, is it's not customer centric. So what I mean by being customer centric is understand where your money comes in. Those companies that are paying you this money are probably having the same issues and challenges around ESG and sustainability as you are, and there's an opportunity to collaborate with them. Or there's an opportunity for you to create a new product line or service that will help them um, with their problems. So this is the key element that I think that really misses the mark there. And sorry, the second part of your question was around the governance side of that internally, was it? What
Mhm.
I'm seeing there is disaggregated accountability, which I mentioned before, not just on the shoulders of two or three people that happen to have sustainability in their titles. The CFO's got to be responsible, say, for the mandatory reporting side of things. Operations probably responsible for waste and emissions. Human resources or the people side of things responsible for health and safety, employee well-being. Also, legals need to look at things like supply chain, modern slavery. They all need to be responsible for their certain piece. And the role of sustainability should be that coordinator to make sure that that's done and represented to various stakeholders in the right way.
So, from what you're saying, I understand that materiality is really a critical foundation, because if it's wrong, everything built on top of it becomes misaligned.
Yeah. Correct. And also, sorry, to your other question too, is how do you actually filter down what's important, what matters most? And when I see a company with 17 sustainable development goal targets, my indicators go, that's just ridiculous, right? I don't even know a government that's doing all 17 well. How can a company do all 17? I would limit a business to 3 or 4 and do them really well that are really tied to your business. So the concept of shared value, or say, for instance, if you're working at a large global IT company and you're not getting enough talent through, part of your sustainability strategy could be working in communities, in science, technology, in schools to try to get further workforce through. Looking at those opportunities that are really relevant to your business, and 3 or 4, not 12, so, and do them well.
Totally understood and agreed. And now I would like to talk about reporting. So reporting expectations in Australia, the EU, and other regions are tightening fast. So, what should organizations prioritize today if they want to be ready for stricter assurance and audit requirements, let's say, over the next few years?
Yeah, a really good question. And I talk about this almost every day to clients. This is coming anyway. So you may as well get on board early, and there's some advantage to be had from early adoption and moving. I don't think it's a no regret strategy to do things like your carbon footprint, set targets and so forth, because it's only a matter of time. Even if you aren't mandated by the government, those mandates are forcing large companies to talk to their suppliers. So if you're supplying say, what we call here in Australia, a Group 1 company who's under mandatory climate reporting disclosures, it's within 12 months you'll be asked the question, and I know this because I'm writing the questions for these companies to ask their suppliers. What's your emissions profile? Do you have any cases of, how do you manage modern slavery? What's your waste? These certain questions are coming through, and they're selecting future suppliers of choice based on these criteria, right? Especially if you've set targets like scope 3 across your supply chain. So it's coming anyway. Brace it and use it to your advantage. And also, the other thing I want to mention too around sort of mandatory reporting is there's 2 types of companies I work with. There's one that's a reluctant complier who just brings me in and said, "Lee, we've got to comply with this. It's a tick box exercise. It's just all this government bullshit. Sorry, but can you just make it go away?" Okay. And there's the other one that says, "We know we have to do this, but I want to know, is there a competitive advantage for us, or is there something that benefits the business?" Now, when you strip all that back, the reason why this legislation is coming is to build better, resilient businesses that stack up that support society. So as a consultant, as people consultants, I rather want to work with the clients that want to do good and want to see the competitive advantage. Those that are reluctant compliers usually spend more money, waste more time fighting the system that is never going to change or never going to actually help them in the long term. So, and they waste more money and time, and they don't get the benefit out of it. They get a compliance tick in the box. So don't be the reluctant complier. Be the one that looks forward, sees the strategic advantage, the competitive advantage, the market differentiator to doing this legislation piece well, and then use that to engage your clients and open up more market share. That's the opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, that's useful because many teams underestimate how much preparation actually preparation time assurance actually requires. Especially when you set this example of companies who have 14 different targets. Obviously, that
Yeah.
will be not attainable.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next question because a lot of companies regularly struggle with ESG data quality, especially when information comes from multiple departments or suppliers. So, what approaches have you found most effective for improving data reliability without overcomplicating the process?
Yeah, I think the best ones I've seen is where you take the human out of it, manual entry of energy bills and things, try get the energy feed straight from your energy provider into a system. It could be just into even Excel. Try and reduce data entry, and new tools with AI are fantastic for that. Integration, automation of that information is really good. I'm just working with a few clients at the moment. One's a hotel chain in the Pacific where they're manually entering energy bills and stuff. There's now an opportunity to get a software tool. You can just scan bills and it goes straight into a system, and we can just generate reports that we need to know. There's alerts that if a certain hotel's gone above the threshold, we know to, alert the engineering team needs to take a look at this sort of site, or even getting granular engineering needs to take a look at that pump or that pool pump or that air conditioning unit's not functioning better, so we can get more proactive around maintenance and reducing costs and also the emission side of things. The other aspect to do is don't do it ad hoc. If you need more data, start with the right architecture. Don't run to a software solution straight away. Understand what you need first. And I've jumped into many clients where they've got this great software and they're trying to wedge their requirements to the software. I'd get your requirements sorted first, even manually, and then look for the software. That would be my advice, because there's a lot of tools out there. There's new things coming every week, but have your good data architecture mapped out of what you need, and also future proof it as well. If you're looking at, you might need to report only your scope 1 and 2 emissions, which is technically things you burn and the electricity you use, but more and more the requirements of legislation are asking you to look at scope 3, which is up and downstream emissions, which is really hard. But understand the systems you have around the finance and so forth, and what you might need in the future as well.
So,
Yeah.
yes, before we were disrupted, I was just asking if you would agree with the statement that at the moment, data reliability continues to be a major pain point, at least for now.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Especially for those starting out new, it can be quite daunting. You've got to report all this information. You've got to get assured by it or externally verified. It can be, yeah, quite a challenge. So, yeah, definitely, and involve the expertise of your IT teams as well. They're already doing that for finance, so forth. Don't run off and do things. Understand what your capability is internally first. Yeah.
Got it. You work a lot with leaders who need to integrate sustainability into financial planning and risk management. So, if you could tell us what is the most realistic way for companies to link ESG performance with core financial outcomes?
Yeah, there's a few key elements that you look for, and even they're alluded to the big performance indicators and some of the legislation where they're asking questions: are executives' remuneration and bonuses tied to sustainable targets as well? So this is a key factor that I've seen behavior change, especially across executives. What do they care most about is bonuses, unfortunately. So where you've tied performance, and where I've been the most important person in the room a few times working for large corporates is, Lee, how we go on that target, because 10% of my bonus is hinging on you hitting your target. And that's where I can go to them, well, okay, you need to fast track this project or that project and so forth. So that is one small thing that actually can create quite a big change. And even if it's only 5 or 10%, you can ratchet that up and down. I'll ratchet it up, hopefully, and get moving, and it creates more focus. That's probably just the one key thing that I would leave that your listeners with, tied to executive remuneration, bonus structures, sustainability goals is key.
And this matters because financial linkage is where many companies run into internal
Correct.
pushback.
Correct. Correct.
Ma-
Correct. Yeah.
Exactly. Many companies are unsure how to balance regulatory compliance with meaningful decarbonization efforts. So, what advice do you give organizations trying to avoid treating compliance as just a box ticking exercise?
Yeah. Like I mentioned before, like it's a hard one. And everyone wants to be compliant, and we see this as a burden. See it as an opportunity. Have a look at that, especially around carbon reporting. You will get some key insights into your business and where the biggest hotspots are, the biggest source of your emissions. I would challenge everyone to say there's an opportunity there to save money. Okay. There's an opportunity to save money. There's an opportunity to actually innovate, and there's an opportunity for you to actually look good in front of your clients, or maybe create a new product or service around that. So understand and go see for yourself. I've taken my boardrooms out to factory floors. I've taken them to source of emissions in farms. You go see for yourself and understand that, and link it to the customer value as well, because customers are wanting more and more low carbon products. Understand where things come from more, the chain of custody and so forth, where your biggest source of emissions, and maybe if you produce a product, there's an opportunity there to maybe reduce the lower carbon. Thinking of all the innovation and money going around green steel around the world. These are sort of ideas of where the products can get a premiumization for low carbon and those attributes.
Got it. And as you said before, companies often focus on meeting minimum thresholds instead
Correct.
of actually addressing real risks. And that's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
From your work advising executives, what characteristics differentiate companies that make steady ESG progress from those that stall or cycle through repeated resets?
Yeah. God, the repeated resets are just so frustrating, aren't they? What I do see is the consistency piece is letting down. That last bit of that triple C framework I talk about. And it's not just, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you've got to make incremental improvements every quarter, almost every month, and look forward ahead. So say, we're here now. What does our sustainability report look like 12 months from now? What does success look like? Is it reducing emissions by a certain amount? We're hitting these targets, engaging customers, our people. Really have a good understanding around that. And where a lot of companies let themselves down is they don't communicate this well, especially to their own people. If you're in a large organization, a lot of people that I've found when I speak to are really enthusiastic about the subject matter and want to know what we're doing. You know, what is our business doing? How good are we? What could we do better? And be honest about that, but report about the challenges, but also celebrate the wins and really celebrate the wins. To say, like, we've transitioned out all our forklifts to electricity, it's saving this amount of emissions. And maybe it's a small bit of the overall emissions pie for our business, but we're making progress. Especially when you've got a big lofty goal of, 2040, 2050 around targets around emissions, report incremental change and celebrate those wins. Be key.
That's useful for our audience because they show what actually works inside an organization. Now, your advisory work spans strategy, development, reporting, leadership coaching, and board engagement. So, a lot. If a company can only focus on one improvement area in the next, let's say, 12 months, 1 year, which area delivers the strongest long term impact?
Yeah, it's taking a look at your business and the context of your business. Now, I asked this one key question, and this is really fundamental when I sometimes get blank stares from the board members, but I asked this question: if your business didn't exist today, would the environment or society be better or worse off? And be prepared for the silence, or ask this of yourselves and ask this of your peers in your business. The answers to that are quite enlightening about what you stand for and your purpose of your business. Now, I've talked to people like manufacturing who say the environment would be worse off because someone else will come in and won't care as much. I go, well, why do you care more? Okay, because we look after our people. We have a modern slavery policy. Our environment would be better. We focus on energy efficiency. The other people won't. So that's the core fundamental being of your business. That's your strength and opportunity. Look at that and understand that. So ask that question of yourself. And when you're in business, do this right now. Just have a think about it. If your business didn't exist tomorrow, it could be even an NGO or a government department or whatever. What would be the impact? Would you be missed, or would people just carry on? Would society or environment be better or worse off? That's a key question, and I love asking in boardrooms, and it really gets people thinking. And the debate and the questions around that are quite enlightening. So that'll be the one thing I'd ask, and then act on the answers to that. Okay, if you won't be missed, then work on that. Why won't you be missed? Is it because someone else is doing a better job than you, will fill the void? Okay, what can you do to improve?
Actually, that's a very great question. I'll definitely keep that in mind. And probably that brought us to the end of our conversation. So before we wrap up, is there anything important you think organizations should pay attention to that we didn't cover today?
Yeah, look, don't be scared, and don't wait for perfection. Just do. You already know what you need to do in your business. There are opportunities. Go for a walk around your business, your factory floor, your office. You'll see things and opportunities that you can actually do. So just get on and do it. Don't wait for a perfect strategy or the perfect opportunity or this bit of legislation. You know what you need to do. Just get on with it and make some impact, even small, but just build on that and just get doing, not talking or reporting. Do stuff. Be my advice.
Lee, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. Your insights on strategy, governance, data quality, and practical implementation will be useful for many of our organizations that follow our work at Net Zero Compare. So thanks again for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks for being here.